Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast. We are Jeff and Terra Matson, a husband and wife team who is shrinking the integrity gap in our own lives and helping others do the same. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach, and Terra is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We believe that if you have a following, you are a leader, and how you lead matters. Whether you are leading in the home, work, or community, we are bringing you biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom to help you in every relationship that matters most to you. None of us do this perfectly, but we are leaning into the reality of our humanity and profound wisdom of grace. A little break from interviewing guests, and we're just going to talk a little bit about our adventure in creating the Living Wholehearted Lodge and Retreat. Some of you who follow us maybe on social media or are part of our newsletter know that we're building a new lodge and retreat, but we've actually had one for about 10 years. And so we get all kinds of questions about this. You know, how do you guys do that? What was the vision for that? I know many of you who are listening are leaders, maybe who have even taken part or want to take part in what we do at the lodge and retreat, or maybe you've thought about doing something like this and are curious about the how. So we're just going to dive in and have a little conversation. Jeff, I'm going to have you start.
Oh boy.
Take us back. You know, when we first met,
right.
You can go back to our love story in one of the earlier episodes in our marriage. But how did we start thinking about having a lodge and retreat? Do you remember?
When the puzzle pieces for us began to come together as it related to this calling that integrated both us in marriage, but also something about vocation. And it was such a cool thing, and we did allude to that in the love story. There was this sense of clarity that we were supposed to be together, and we're supposed to do something that integrated how we work. We didn't know what that was at all, but as the years went by and those puzzle pieces began to come together, we began to see a clearer picture about that. And one of those times, for sure, was that sense of, hey, we're moving. We lived in a house and we had this place, but we couldn't do what we loved to do. More. We were entertaining, but we couldn't do it to the degree that we wanted to. We were also beginning to rent venues for some of the workshops that we were doing on parenting and on couple stuff. And it was just like, wow, this is expensive. And our first one was out at Black Butte Ranch. I remember that. And we literally rented some of the condos that were out there.
We made no money.
A space. We made zero money. We invited people and gave it to them for free.
Yeah, we gave it away.
As a means of, there were key invites, but we gave it to them to bless.
Uh-huh.
And certainly there were some things that returned to us after those spaces with some people. But it was one of those deals where it was like, what if we could do this at a place that we actually lived?
Yeah. So I remember growing up, and I participated in Young Life. Many people may know about that, but I remember going to this family's house, and they would let us kids hang out there, and I would ride their llama. Yes, I rode a llama.
Wow, would love to have seen that.
But I remember God kind of putting something in my heart back then about what would it look like to have a house where you invited and let people partake in different experiences. And then fast forward, there was so many times when we would want to integrate between the work that we do as coaching and counseling, and be able to hospitality. We both love hospitality.
Yeah.
We both love people.
Yep.
And so, the idea of really being able to connect the dots there. The other thing that I remember being in full-time ministry and trying to find a place that wasn't really far away, but to find a place of respite.
Right.
So I think that was another desire that we had was, could we create a place that wasn't too far outside of Portland, Oregon, where people could really get away and feel like they were getting away?
Yeah, in those early years, we did. We opened it up. We opened it up to pastors and ministry leaders in our local area, and said at that time, in our first lodge and retreat, hey, listen, if you need a place to just unpack, unwind, here's a half day. It's complimentary. and it's close. Look, you don't have to drive an hour to get here, and you're going to have the whole lower level, the whole property to just do and connect with God, restore, renew, and rebuild. Connect with Him, and it was just really cool. But it was amazing how few took
Mm,
us up on it. But we remember that too. And being in full-time vocational ministry, our church was so awesome to literally pay for a half day once a month for us to is paid time off to go and do those things. And it was tough to try to actually take the time to do that. Yet it was paid time off.
yeah. And
So
especially now
you're
in the
right.
digital age, like it's really hard to find a place where you can really go offline, right? Where there's no phone, there's no email,
Yeah.
and to really unplug so that you can connect back with God, your first love. And that was a place we were trying to find a place where we could create an environment where it would be a little bit more of silence and solitude. So, kind of a combination of
Yeah.
hospitality and then a place where people could have some downtime and really in creation too.
Yeah, where creation speaks, God speaks through creation, and where they could experience that, the quietness, like you're saying, the solitude, other spiritual disciplines, kind of just reconnect in that way. We all are wired to do that, and somehow, in some way, we approach it differently. But that was where that passion came from. So we created that place, and God used it. We couldn't have done this on our own. It was one of those things where it was like we dream big, as in our core values talks of early days. Both you and I are really high merchants, so we dream big for people when we see vision, and we did. We began to pray big prayers, and then that led us to a sense of clarity about needing to lean into others to help us accomplish that initial goal. So we reached out to a family God laid on our hearts that lived pretty far away in the South, but who had a connection with us. One of the family members had was really close to initially, and that then developed relationships with the broader family. And we pitched this idea. Remember going down there,
Oh, I
right?
was
Remember
so
that?
nervous.
We're gonna ask for investment, and we're not fundraisers,
No,
and
we didn't want to do
super
fundraising.
uncomfortable. But yet we felt God say, "You go, and these people see you, and ask them." And God blessed them with much. And it was amazing. We were as nervous as we could be, but yet we are confident in God's directive to us. We did that. They heard us. They saw that. They took time to pray and really consider it, as we knew they would, because they're serious in their own faith relationship with God and the stewarding of His resources that He'd entrusted with them. And then they came back and they said, "We want to invest, and here's what we can do." And it was more than we even asked. And it allowed us to make that purchase in combination with our own resources to the initial lodge and retreat. And then we
Mm.
started doing what we said we were going to do. And then God gave us even additional ideas, but we did a lot of the things that He gave us vision for and carried those out for all of those years.
Absolutely. Well, it before we keep going, I wanted to just kind of speak to the two halves, like the people who have the resources and God has given you abundance, maybe through your business or it's just a part of your family history. There's so many opportunities to invest in kingdom work and to be very creative with that. And this was a creative out of the box kind of thinking that this family jumped in with us. And then on the other side, so many times we think we're limited by our resources, and we serve a big God with an incredible amount of resources and abundance. And a lot of times it just takes courage to pray and to ask who, and then to go talk to those people. And maybe it's not them, but maybe they're going to connect you with the next people. But it's this stepping stone of trusting and building faith. And I think that really the Lodge and Retreat and that part of our story, Jeff, has honestly grown my faith in tremendous ways because I have hangups around money just with my own story. And so to be able to receive was a big deal for me personally. And then to be able to have a home where I could bless so many people. So everything from marriage intensives and retreats. We started doing visioning retreats for leaders and really helping them to understand maybe the next 10 years, visioning what God would have for them, and then to be able to go into action steps. We did parenting retreats, prayer retreats, allowing people to come away for respites, a lot of organizational retreats where teams would come out, family intensives where moms and dads would give gifts to their kids for their adult children for Christmas, and they'd all come out with their spouses, and we'd get to talk CBI and really have a time of play and deeper connection and learning communication and wiring. And in all of that, we think that everybody that was a part of that lodge and retreat really connected with God and one another well.
Yeah. And one of the things that we were always thinking about as we got into this process was how do we keep our priorities straight? And for us, our marriage and our family, so our girls in this process, as we were having this big vision about doing a lodge and retreat. And the reality is that the physical space was our home, but we divided the lower footprint of the entire house and the property for work engagements designated for that when we would use those so that we weren't having to rent venues. And yet we live upstairs, and when we didn't have those engagements, we used it all. But
we called ourselves the innkeepers.
Yeah, right. And so when we're thinking about the intention behind integrating, bringing our girls along in this process, they helped put together some of the landscaping and the trails and some of the things that we did to create environments for respite for the clients that would come out there for organizational retreats or some of the other activities that you described, so many of those. And I remember, many times after certain things that we would do, and most everything that happened out there was for enrichment. Our clinical services were done in Tualatin at our office there. But our girls, we would say, look, here's what we got to do today. Here's what we saw God do today. And they, in telling those stories around the table, it was including them and keeping them as our priority so that it wasn't just a sideshow. It wasn't just something that took away from our family. It enriched our family experiences.
We also paced it, right? We paced how often we did events there, so that that's really just a theme for our entire life is making sure we had margin around events, because the setup, the teaching, we kind of did it all. And we learned a lot in that space.
The tear down, the cleanup.
Yes, we did it all. And so this new space, we really learned what works, what doesn't work, and our girls are older, and they'll be helping us develop a new property. And it's so exciting for them to see how we can put all of our resources and serve and to create something that others can experience too. It doesn't have to be just for us, but that balance between when is this about us, a smaller family unit, and when is it about opening our arms to a greater community.
We're excited to let you know that all this week, you have the chance to help keep the Living Wholehearted podcast with Jeff and Terra going strong and encouraging you in your parenting journey. And that's by giving a donation to ChristianParenting.org. The Living Wholehearted podcast is part of the Christian Parenting Podcast Network, which we like to say has a podcast for every parent. But reaching over 500,000 moms and dads with trusted biblical guidance every month comes with a cost, which is why I hope you'll give a special donation today.
Besides producing products like the Living Wholehearted podcast, Christian Parenting also develops books, workbooks, prayer journals, blog resources, and other practical tools to help parents like you become the perfectly imperfect parents God created you to be. You can set aside perfection and grow into the perfectly imperfect parent you want to be, and I know you want to share this message of hope and freedom to more moms and dads. So please give generously today by texting CP Give to 474747. That's CPGIVE to 474747. You can also give by visiting cpgive.org. Christian Parenting is 100% donor-funded and relies on listeners like you to support the future creation of parenting resources. So please give us a special donation this week to keep the Living Wholehearted podcast and Christian Parenting going strong. How did we end up starting to build this lodge and retreat? When did that all start?
Well, it started different times, which is classic between you and I. You felt maybe more ready earlier, and I was closed because we really still felt so committed and called to that initial space. We were there for 10 years, certainly, and then what happened was of course, it flips, and God shares something with me. He wakes me up in the middle of the night, and I come to you the next morning and say, I think we're supposed to sell this place. and you got mad.
Well, okay, let me go back because I got mad because I think I came to you like 6 months earlier and was like,
Okay.
I'm sensing that
Yeah.
we need to be doing something different. And what we can do here is limited. And I think we need to be expanding as we think ahead for more of our leadership development and our cohorts.
Yeah,
And
you had a good meaning behind all that.
yeah, and you were probably in the middle of a bunch of things, and you gave me a very quick builder response.
We're not
No.
moving. We're not moving, I think I
We're
said.
not moving. And I just thought, okay, not for discussion right now. And I set it aside, and honestly, I let it go.
Yeah.
And so when you approached me and
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
I think we're supposed to move, I had already moved past that idea.
Yeah, it's classic for us. I don't know if it's classic for anybody else that's listening out there, but it probably is, where you're not necessarily immediately on the same page. But, God, we love the Lord and we love each other, and his timing is perfect, is right. And when we have unity, and it wasn't shortly thereafter that we got to that space of, my gosh, we both felt so free and felt like peace and felt excited. And we began to take the steps. And then our house sold in a day, of within hours of it being listed. And then we thought, what are we going to do then? And then it was like, where are we going to go? And then God provided a rental where we are presently at through other friends that he led to call us instead of us pursuing them. And then we met a builder. The steps started coming together, and then this thing is happening. It's happening right now.
Yeah, and for us and our wirings, we have no problems with moving forward once we've done a lot of the back work. And so this is about a 2-year journey of praying and dialoguing and talking about our resources and what was next for us. So when that moment came and you said, I think it's time for us to let someone else have this place and it's time for us to move. We didn't really know where we were going to go.
Yeah.
But I got angry, and then I think I had hosted a prayer retreat. It was actually my last Courageous Women's Prayer Day.
Yeah.
And here I am
spot.
hosting all of these women, a smaller group because it was during a pandemic. But I'm outside, we're all processing, and I could just, I was grieving that day. I remember just thinking, this is my last time doing this, and yet I didn't want it to be. So it was this war going on. And I don't think I even told you that night that I sensed God telling me it was time to let it go too.
It wasn't that night. It was
because I was
couple days
stubborn.
later.
I didn't want to give it to you yet. But I think the next morning I finally told you, and that's when we started to move pretty fast. And so it looks fast to people outside of our relationship or our smaller circle, our prayer circle of friends. But in all reality,
it probably even looks fast within some of those members of our inner circle.
That's true.
Even though they saw the whole thing.
But we're
just
up for
because
adventure.
that's our wiring. That's who
Yeah.
we are too. So it can look differently for anybody. In our story, this is how it looked for us. And, we don't really want to get ahead of God and what he's doing in our lives. And you can see the way you're made. You can see some things before generally I can see some things. And you're seeing a lot of things, and you'll bring those to the table. And sometimes I'm not ready for that. And other times I'll see something and you need to sit through it and see through it. And so it's just, this is the work of marriage. But this is how God was taking us towards shared meaning, which is something that I think we are all about and want to stay in and help other couples discover and find. And at the new lodge and retreat, we're going to be able to do more of that, and even better, because gosh, we're 10 years having experienced that in a previous place, and this new place is going to allow us to do that so much better and more effectively and on a bigger scale. Thank God for that.
Yeah, we're so excited. You said a couple of things that I think are so good and reminders. This wasn't meant to be a marriage podcast, but why not go down that road? 2 things. One is unity. Like when a couple's not really on the same page, we really believe that God will provide unity if it's what you're supposed to do. So if you're not in unity, you wait.
That's
wait.
good wisdom.
There's wisdom in waiting. And 2, finding shared meaning. The Gottmans, who have done over 40 plus years of research now in the Seattle, Washington area, are some of our marriage research experts all throughout the marriage therapy community. And the research they developed something called the Relationship Sound House. And that Relationship Sound House has all kinds of layers of what builds a healthy marriage. And so as we're building this house, it is symbolic for us, but the foundation is, knowing one another, taking time to really understand who one another is. And then being able to work on communication and self-regulating, and that's being able to soothe ourselves and not constantly going to our spouse to make us happy. And communication also means trust and commitment.
Those are the walls of the house
Yeah.
on either side that hold
And
up
without
that
a
roof.
wall, you're going to have a huge storm that's going to wipe you out. And so you're building all these things over time. And so the top layer of that roof is the shared meaning. It's the top of the house. And you have to have that foundation before you can put it on. And so maybe there's couples that are listening and are like, oh, we're working on communication still. So, we can kind of get envious of one another. But for Jeff and I, we've been working on our relationship from day one. And somewhere along the way, this lodge and retreat has become really a place of shared meaning for us. And again, a shared place where both our giftings get used.
And on that house, that sound relation, that relationship sound house, you can come back to different areas of that house. We do all the time. Sometimes we're revisiting trust. We're talking about our commitment because we need that right now to get us through this hard stage or whatever it might be, or so that's really normal as well in a relationship. You're not just living in shared meaning 100% of the time and never having to go back, but you lean into those earlier layers. They do build and they are additive.
We're using communication big time by building this house.
Oh my gosh, the literal lodge and retreat that we're building, it's testing all these areas. You bet, yeah.
Okay, let's end with what's the one thing you're looking most forward to?
Oh man, for me, I tell you just the idea. I go there a lot. Every time I go there, I feel calm and I breathe and I feel home. I'm really looking forward to getting the keys and thanking the builder for the finish line and knowing that our loan is in place and just that moment of a sense of let's walk in that door and nobody else needs to come with us but our family, and we get to have the firsts, so many of the firsts in that space together. And our girls are just at the age where we're going to have many years there still, even though the time is clicking away. It's like, oh man, I want to get there. I want to begin experiencing those firsts with you and with them.
You're also thinking ahead to grandkids, which is so funny. This place is making us think about that as well.
Heck yeah.
I'm like, let's finish this first with our kiddos.
I know I'm only 44, but it's that's still the most noble role I think I'll ever have.
Grandpa. Well, I'm looking forward to hosting our gatherings. I cannot wait to start sharing this place, and I'm already envisioning all the things that we can do. So I've got a list going as my ideas start building. I am an idea machine. I come up with the ideas, and Jeff puts the feet to those ideas.
All right.
But I'm really excited to be able to host. I think a couple things about this place. It has 2 bathrooms for our lodge and retreat, which is funny.
Takes care of one big
problem. But the last one, we had to get an outhouse for some of our larger events. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited that there's a kitchen downstairs. And in terms of hosting larger meals, we'd have something called the feast, and we'd provide this amazing meal for women, 30 women coming out for a prayer day where they'd fast all day, and then we'd enjoy a meal around a farm table that Jeff had built. It was one of my favorite days that we did every summer. But the amount of time that we took to get the food from the kitchen all the way down to the table.
Just that little logistic.
Woo,
yeah, right.
Just having a kitchen downstairs. I'm so excited about that. So those are a few things that we're looking forward to. And if you don't know much about Living Wholehearted and you're kind of like, what are they talking about? You can check it out at livingwholehearted.com, where we do counseling, consulting, organizational consulting, and coaching. But we've also got all these retreats that'll be coming, and our calendar will come out probably January 2022. And if you're interested in joining our Wholehearted Leadership Cohort, that is where we spoil leaders. They get a cohort of 9 other leaders that they get to walk through for a 2-year journey. And we bring you out to the lodge and retreat 4 times in that 2 years. And we just really go deep. And we're just excited to be able to walk with leaders who God brings our way. So you can go there, and applications are open in August.
Well, about the lodge and retreat, God willing, we'll be there in the fall, and we're going to enjoy a little bit of that just as our family, get used to it, and then those activities are really going to begin to be launched. And so we're looking forward to being there and seeing God do His wonders in that property and in His creation around there. It's on 5 acres of Doug fir trees. There's I just saw a 4-point buck the other day and a doe. We got red-tailed hawks flying above, a mating pair. So many exciting wilderness things. There's trails, things that we're going to create, and it's going to be really cool. Yeah, premier view of Mount Hood at every window on the back side of the house, and it's so exciting to get a chance to see that beautiful creation and allow us to connect to God and to each other relationally in a space like that. So we hope you get to come and check it out and see more about it. This podcast is powered by Living Wholehearted, Courageous Girls, and the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us in this critical movement of shrinking our integrity gaps between what we preach and live.